So our today's discussion will be on the primary building blocks of a Python program. We will be specifically focusing on keywords, Python keywords or Python reserved words, and variables declared in a Python program in today's class. Before discussing about those building blocks, I would like to discuss about how a Python program can be executed. There are basically broadly two ways. One is in an interactive way, and another is using a script. So let me show you both. So in an interactive code, you would need to be entering into a prompt something like this, and you will be writing the code such as this in your inline Python interpreter. So this is basically the interpreter. After entering, you can see it will be executed. Of course, you can understand that if you want to write a multi-line code here, it would be tricky. It would be tricky in the sense, after, as I have shown you, after pressing the enter, it is not actually taking the cursor in the next line. What it is doing is, it is actually executing this line, executing basically the line that you have written. And in this line, if you have missed some, if you have done some errors, it will be showing you the corresponding error. This is the way these programs are getting executed is called in an interactive way. So this is actually easy to write, but the problem is, as you can understand, a multi-line code would be hard to manage here, because there is no way to go back and forth in this code, because every time you will be writing one code, one line at a time, and that will be getting executed after you press enter. So this is actually applicable for experimentation, very basic experimentation, or programs with very few number of lines, such as 3 or 4 lines. The second way of writing the code is using a script. Using a script, what we'll be doing is, we'll be writing the whole code, whatever we want to write, in a file, and we will be giving it an extension .py. And then we will be giving the Python interpreter that file as input. Let's show you that one as well. So this was the interpreted or interactive one. So now let's open, let's write another file, say hello.py. Let's write the same thing, hello. Now I have saved the file which is containing the line print hello. Now in this case, in the interactive way, what we have done is, we have started the Python interpreter, and then we have written the corresponding state that we want to execute. Here what we will be doing is, we will be providing the name of the interpreter, in this case which is Python 3, and then we will be providing with the name of the file which is containing the Python statements or Python expressions. Giving an enter, pressing an enter, you can see that using this Python interpreter, this file is getting executed and the corresponding output is getting printed, or corresponding output is produced by the code. Now I have mentioned two things, one is statement, one is expression. As you might have noticed, we will be discussing what are they in few minutes. So these are the basic two ways of executing one code. Now one question to you. So we have also written some codes in Jupyter Notebook as well, such as writing print hello here as well. So can you say what type of execution, interpreted one, interactive one, or a script based one here? Anyone?
Interactive.
Sorry?
Interactive, right?
Interactive.
So why
It
not
is,
script?
yes, it is actually interactive. I'm telling why it's not actually a script. It is actually interactive, but it has some further advantage over the basic script that we have written here as well. It is actually, if I am writing this print hello here, it is actually, I mean, making one line, one statement, pressing, I mean, if I want to execute it, I just need to go here and run cell, click this run cell here, or we can also press control enter to execute it. Now, this is actually working in a similar way like a script. In a script, all the lines will be executed line after the other, one line after the other. So in case you have written a code like this, and there are say multiple lines like hello 1, hello 2, hello 3, and so on and so forth. All the lines will be executed one after the other. First this line, then this line, then this line, then this line, and so on. But in case of an interactive or in case of a notebook cell, the lines in the cell will be executed line after the other, one line after the other. But we can, as we have seen, we can execute this, then this. So we can execute this, then we can execute this. The output or the variables initialized in this cell can be used here, such as if I say c equals to 2 plus 4, if I try to print the value of c here, you can see there is no c here because we haven't executed this statement. Note that print c is giving me a name error, name c is not defined. Now, if I execute this cell now c is defined, c is 5. Now if I want to execute this, you can see the value of c is basically 2 plus 4, not 5, extremely sorry. 2 plus 4, the value stored in c is getting printed. So in this way, we can actually run one cell after the other wherever the cell is, whether above the present cell or below the present cell. Now the thing is, you can consider this is a mixture of both of these. Individual cells are considered as scripts, and as we can execute individual cells in any way that we want to execute, we can get kind of an interactive outcome, such as executing the codes from here after writing the whole code in the terminal. Similar, why this is not entirely one not entirely a script or not entirely an interactive based coding. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so while discussing about program development phases, we have discussed 5 phases. The third phase was the most important one, that is the coding. Identification and planning are basically the phases where we do not need to write any code. In the planning phase, as we have discussed, we need to write, we need to write, but we can write some pseudo codes or some flowcharts or to understand how the coding will be needed to be how the code is needed to be written. So the main discussion of this course will be concentrated on this coding part. So as we have discussed earlier briefly, in contrast to a human language, the corresponding thing associated with vocabulary and words we have stated as strings and numbers. Now I am saying the corresponding thing in human language, that is vocabulary and words in human language, is identifiers, reserved words, and literals. The sentence structure corresponding to a human language and the corresponding thing in a programming language, in this case Python language, will be valid syntax pattern that will be consisting of identifiers, reserved words, literals, as well as operators. So basically a sentence structure in an English language, the corresponding similar thing in Python language or any programming language is a valid syntax pattern consisting of some vocabulary or words, that is identifiers, reserved words, and literals, along with operators. And if we are discussing about writing a story in, say, English, the story structure or the way we are defining or telling the story or writing the story, the same thing in a programming language is the construction of the whole program. So the construction of the whole program is basically a set of statements, or in other words, a set of valid syntax patterns. Those were consisting of identifiers, reserved words, operators, and literals. Now let's look at one very brief code. So in this code, what I am doing is I am taking one integer as input from the user. I am initializing something g equals to 1, and then I'm writing something or the other, while true, and so on and so forth. Can someone guess what this program is actually doing? Anyone? It is not expected that you will be able to write.
Square root of.
Perfect. It is actually correct. So it is basically the code to predict or guess or approximate the square root of a number that is taken as an input from the user. Now there is a one-to-one correspondence here between the colors. The reserved words are this, the ones in color blue. The identifier, the literals is basically the color, these light blue color here. The literals, there can be multiple types of literals, like integer number, floating number, also as well as complex numbers. We'll be discussing them. The operators, as you can see, those were in the pink. And identifiers I have specified in bold case here, which are basically consisting of variables, which are these x, g, here all these are variables, function names, in this case input is a function name, or print is a function name, or int is a function name, as well as class. So these three consists of identifiers. Basically identifier specifies either a variable or a function name or a class name. Now in today's lecture we will be discussing these in details. Today's focus will be on variables. Later on we will be discussing about functions and classes. Now again, valid syntax pattern is basically consisting of a set of statements and expressions written using identifiers, reserved words, operators, and literals, following the grammar or following the syntax of the corresponding programming language. In this case, in our case, the programming language is Python. So basically a valid syntax pattern is expressions and statements that are consisting of identifiers, reserved words, literals, and operators following the grammar or following the syntax of the programming language Python. Here is another code. It is not expected that you will be able to understand the code now. We will be discussing throughout the course. We will be writing codes like this. So don't get confused or don't get frustrated if you are not able to understand some part of the code. This is a very basic code. There are certain lines. So to discuss about the different components of the Python program, I have shown this program, a very basic program. A Python program will be consisting of keywords such as this: import, def, return, and so on. It will be consisting of identifiers. As I have said earlier, identifiers are variables, functions, and classes. Here, C, math.py, R, again C, rad, CIR, these are the variables. Get circumference, get underscore some circumference is a function. But note that this maroon, which is a little bit different. So basically, while calling, it is considered as a kind of similar to a variable. Don't get confused with the color, because color I tried to, while writing your code in the IDE, you will be getting some color out of, whenever you will be writing the code. So I just tried to replicate the same thing here to discuss the thing, to help you understand, to correlate the things in a better way. So, and also class. So in this code, there is no class. We'll be discussing classes in details. Operators, as you can see, star, equals to, these are some operators. These are mathematical operators, and this is assignment operator. Literals, here too is an integer literal. There are certain other components in the Python program as well, such as modules. This is a module that we are using. Don't get frustrated if you are not understanding what is import and what is math. We'll be discussing this later. For the time being, just understand that this is a module. The math module. Now, module is something which is basically a set of code. For the time being, let's consider it is a set of code written somewhere which you are not able to see, but you can use those codes for your inside your code. Another component is comment. Comment is basically the fifth phase of a program development phases that we have discussed. That is the fifth stage. The comment is basically, as you can guess now, it is basically for documenting your code. To write in simple language what the program is all about. So I have written one comment set of lines here to state what this function is supposed to be doing. Again, don't get frustrated. We'll be discussing this later on. I'm just showing you the different components in the Python program. We will be discussing one after the other in details. I was saying a Python code or any program will be consisting of a set of expressions and statements. An expression is basically a combination of identifiers, operators, and literals, and the statements will be some action, such as this print statement, assignment statement, or conditional statement. Here in this sample code, this is basically one assignment statement. Rad equals to float input something or the other. This is another assignment statement. C equals to 2 star math.py star r. This is another assignment statement. These are all statements. This is a print statement. And this 2 star math.py star r is basically an expression. So as I was saying, this is basically an expression. 2 star math.py star r, and C equals to, this whole thing is basically a statement. Expression, statement. So Python program or any program will be basically consisting of a set of statements and expressions. Let's discuss about the keywords. So as we have seen, these are the components of a Python program. Keywords are the reserved words in Python. So these reserved words have some designated purpose or designated meaning in based on which we will be using them, And these words and the corresponding purpose and the corresponding meaning is actually defined by the Python language developer. Note that at present we are not Python language developer. So these reserved words are defined by those who have developed the Python programming language. These are some of the, actually all of the Python keywords that are present in Python version 3.6. In 3.8, as some of you are using, there are two newly incorporated keywords. Those were not actually very much needed for this course. So these are the keywords that we will be using in this course, throughout this course, for writing different programs. And we will be discussing each of them whenever we will be encountering the case when the application of these keywords will be necessary. Now, these keywords have some, actually implies some restriction while writing our code. Note that I have said that these reserved words or these keywords are defined by the Python language developer. But we are Python programmer. We will be writing programs in Python. We are at present, we are not the developer of the Python programming language. So we cannot actually change the meaning of these words. And also we cannot use these keywords as identifiers. What is identifier? We'll be discussing in a short while. So these keywords will be used together with identifiers and operators and literals to form some expressions and statements in Python. And another thing is keywords are case sensitive, such as you can see, this false is starting with F capital, such something like in contrast to something like for, where F is in small. So capital FOR is not the same as small FOR. Small FOR is actually defined by the Python language developer, and which is having some defined meaning. False, we'll be encountering all of them together, not together, but while discussing different aspects of programming, we'll be discussing all of them. Now let's, as I have mentioned here, a keyword such as these cannot be used as identifiers. Now what is an identifier? So identifiers are basically the names assigned by the Python programmer, that is us. At present we are only Python programmer. We are not actually Python language developer. Of course we can contribute to the Python community. That is actually possible. If you have seen some some bug in the Python language, or if you want to contribute some new feature into Python language, you can actually communicate to the Python community with your suggestion, with your corresponding code. In that case, you will be, at that time, you will be considered as a Python language developer. But at present, we will be simple Python programmer. So these identifiers are defined by Python programmers, which are basically the names assigned to the variables, functions, and classes. And for the keywords or the reserved words, the purpose or the why they are actually defined was defined by the Python language developer. In this case, it is the responsibility of the programmer to define why we are defining or declaring those identifiers. It is the responsibility of us. This is again a small code. This is basically a function. Def is a keyword that is used to declare a function or define a function. The name of the function is add, which is taking two parameters and returning the result after adding them. Again, return is another keyword. This is a whole code. Here, add, a, b, res, these are all variables. Function, add is a function. and add, C, A, B, res, these are all identifiers. And for the time being, in the first phase of the course, we will not be writing any classes on our own, but we will be looking at some classes. Later on, we will be writing our classes as well. So what is a variable? So variables are basically some places in the memory that is used to store a value. So in other words, you can say it is basically a container to hold something, a container to hold some value, and variable is basically the name of the container. Such as these are three containers, as you can see. In one container, I have stored the string called the string of the value of the string is Bob. I am in another container. I am storing the value true, which is actually of type bool, which is basically associated with boolean, which will be containing the value either true or false. And in a third container or third variable, I am storing the value 35, which is an integer type. So again, it is the responsibility of the programmer to choose the name of the variables. And using those names, we will be accessing the content. Using the names, we will be accessing the content stored in these containers. And we can also change the content. That is, after assigning one value, we can change the value as well using the name of the variable. For example, let's look at one small code. Let's initialize one. So here in this statement, this is an assignment statement. As you can see, a equals to 10. So this statement is causing, so exclude, I mean, don't consider this. This is just to show you this is written in an interactive way. Just ignore this three greater than signs. So a equals to 10, what it will do is it will be creating one memory location, or allocating one memory location. It will be providing the memory location with the name A and will be storing the value 10. If you declare another variable, say b equals to 20, it will be creating another memory location in the memory. We'll be calling it B and we'll be storing the value 20 here. Now, if you write A equals to B, so the existing value of A, which was 10, will be overwritten by the value 20. Here in this sample code, this 3-line code, A and B are the variables or the container in which we are storing some value. So here basically the values are this 10 and 20. And the name of the variable is basically A and B. So now my question to you, can you say which memory we are actually creating? I mean, in which memory these are actually getting stored? Is it the primary memory or is it the secondary memory?
It's the random access memory.
It is the random access memory. That is, it is the primary memory. Correct. But also, I mean, in this context, let me tell you this: we are not directly using, or any program is not directly using primary memory. There is another thing I have briefly mentioned called virtual memory, as you can remember. These are basically some memory locations created in the virtual memory space. Well, you are absolutely correct. In this context, those were actually, I mean, overall, they are actually the primary memory. But again, let's not go into the details of virtual memory, which is out of the scope of this course. You are absolutely correct. These are actually, not actually, but we can consider they are actually stored or being created in the primary memory. So if we only consider primary and secondary memory is the hard disk. Hard disk, whenever we will be storing something, it will be stored in the hard disk. Now again, another question to you: whenever I am writing something here, whenever I am defining, say, C equals to say 2 plus 3. So C is a variable, right? So again, this C is actually created in virtual memory, or in overall term, we can consider that this C is being created in the primary memory. Moving ahead. Now, the variables, as we have seen here, the variables need to assign with some values. In other words, the variables need to assign with some, at some point literal, or at some point some other variables as well. To assign some value, there is a designated operator, which is this equals to operator. So assigning value, if we want to assign a value, we will be using this assignment operator, which is this equals to. So if we want to assign a value of, say, Tom in a variable name, we need to write name equals to Tom. And if we want to change the name from Tom to Jerry, we just need to again write name equals to Jerry. So after writing this, so if I write name equals to Tom, and then if I execute if I print the name, as you can see, it is showing me the name Tom. So basically, Tom is stored in this name variable. Now, if I initialize the name with Jerry, now if I execute the print statement to print the value stored in name, you can see Jerry is being stored. So we can assign and reassign the values in a variable using this equals to operator or assignment operator. Multiple assignment is also possible in Python. Those of you who are already familiar with some programming language such as Java or C++ or C, this is something new. Multiple assignments are not actually possible in other languages. Some not actually possible in C and Java, but for some other high-level languages, they are also possible. But as I have said, I hope most of you had done either some course in C, C++, or Java in your school or in your bachelor's or master's. So this kind of multiple assignments are actually not possible in all of those three languages. This is something new. So basically here in this code, I am defining three variables: name, comma, species, comma, character equals to Jerry, comma, mouse, comma, fictional. This will assign the value Jerry in name, mouse in species, and fictional in character. So as you can see, or as you can understand, all these values that I have assigned to variables here, are of type strings. There are other type of values as well. So the types are basically the different types of box. So as you can see, or as you can assume that, not assume, as you can understand that a variable or a container that is designated to store one integer value is not actually sufficient to store a string. So that's why different types of data is actually necessary to store different types of values, or different types of values. In this case, for example, these are integers. So if you want to assign integers, they will be treated in a way. If you want to assign some strings, it will be treated in another way. Integer, float, string, you can already understand. Of course, we will be discussing these in more details. Boolean, list, and tuples, these are advanced ones. We'll be discussing later in this course. So Boolean is basically two designated, again, keywords, that is true and false, which indicate some specific values, specific meanings. List is basically a set of terms, and tuple is also a set of terms, but for list, they are not actually ordered. We can actually sort them, but for tuple, this is basically ordered, and tuples are not actually changeable. Don't worry, we'll be discussing this later. I mean, there is a couple of classes dedicated to lists and tuples later in this course. Now, as you can, I mean, as you might be wondering, how to actually say which type a variable, which type of data a variable is storing. For that, there is a designated function defined in Python that is called type. Let's look at one example. Now, I don't know, at this point, I don't know what type of data name is storing. To check what type of data, what type of value name is storing, we just need to provide this, and you can see in this output that name is of type str. So using this type function, which is defined in the Python 3.6 version, actually it is defined in 2 as well, which is basically a defined function in Python. Given the variable name, it can say what type of value it is storing. Now let me show you some funny things. Let's say I am storing a equals to 5. Okay. Now, if I print the type of a, it is showing that it is of type int. Now, if I make it say, oh, another thing, print a, okay, the output is 5, okay, and the type is int. Now, if I change it to string, we can, we can understand that anything inside this quote, single quote or double quote, is considered as strings. Now, if I do this, the output will be same. As you can see, the quote is not there. Now, from this, we can misunderstood that a is storing an integer. But to double check or to ensure that it is actually storing whether it is an integer or not, we should be using this type function. Now, as you can see, type of a is actually str, which is string. Another thing, of course, we'll be discussing in the next class as well, which is called dynamic typing. You can see here earlier a was integer, right? Now dynamically we can change the type of this variable as well. Now a has become of type str or string, which is again something which is absent in C or C++ or Java, the 3 programming languages mostly you have done. This dynamic typing is not present in neither of those 3. In those cases, if you declare one variable, say int I can only store one integer value, as I hope you can remember. But for dynamic typing languages such as Python, we can change the type we can store different types of data at different point of time in the same variable. As you can see, the same variable here it is string, earlier it was an integer. Now here type of hello world will be string. Now if I declare count equals to 10 and check the type of count, which will be integer, type of 3.1415 will be float. Now one question to you. So if I declare count equals to 10 and type of in quote count, what will be the output? And what will be the output for this? Anyone?
First one will be integer.
Mm-hmm.
And second one float.
Okay, anyone else?
So first one will be integer and second one will be string.
Okay, anyone else?
Both are string.
Both are string. Because here this count is not actually this count. This is a string. This is a statement where I have declared one count. Can you please switch, mute yourself because I'm hearing an echo. Yes. So here in this statement, I have written count equals to 10. In this statement, this count is a variable. But while checking the type, instead of writing count, mistakenly I have written in quote count. In quote, count is a string, which is not actually this count. Similar thing here as well. If I want to check the type, so let's test this here. Say print the type of in quote 3.1415. You can see that class, I mean the type is string. Now this will be float. Sorry. This will be float. Similar to the case here. So count equals to 10. Print type of count will be integer, but print type of in quote count will be string. Because this count and this count is two entirely different things. This count is this, and this count is just a string. There is no correspondence between this count and this count. Okay, doubt clear? So both of them will be of type string. So that's it for today's, up to today's class. Tomorrow we'll be discussing with the keyword, discussing on different statements and expressions, and we'll be continuing the discussion on variables. Thank you. Any question? Thank you. Any question?
Okay, sir, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Yeah, in the previous class, you did one problem like A equal to 5 and B equal to 7, and simply adding that was printing 57, right?
Right.
Though A is A and B are considering 5 and 7 as a string, right?
Correct, correct. So whenever you are applying this plus here, here A and B are considered as of type string.
If there is no quotation,
If that is not quotation, it will be output, the corresponding output will be 12. Because in that case, the type will be considered as string, will be considered as integers by default. Because these are integers.
okay,
Isn't it?
got it. Yeah, got it.
Okay, great. So of course, it is, I mean, if you do this, I'm just saying you, this is another way of getting the right output, correct output from this kind of statement as well. Here what I'm doing is I'm typecasting, although int is of type string, I'm typecasting it to int. Although b is of type string, I'm typecasting it to int, and then it will be providing us with the same output. This is another way. Again, don't worry, we will be discussing this later as well.
Hello, sir.
Any further question?
Sir, when we
Yes, please.
execute a particular cell which may have a number of lines, so the whole cell gets executed for one time. So what if we want to run like a loop?
Line by line, line by line.
Okay, sir.
Yes. So if you want to, I mean, loop we'll be discussing in more, I think in the third week, we'll be discussing about loops. In that case, while discussing about loops, we'll be discussing how to execute multiple line of codes multiple times. But if you want to execute one cell multiple times, there is no straightforward way. You just need to, I mean, execute the same cell one after the other, I mean, continuously. We cannot execute a cell in a, I mean, in a loop. That is, if you want to execute this cell 50 times, what you need to do is you need to put these 3 lines inside a loop, and you need to execute that loop 50 times. You cannot directly execute the cell 50 times. The cell will be executed only once. Got it?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Sir, hello. Yes,
Yes.
I have a question. That is, I want to know about what is a kernel. I have understood cell, but
So kernel, for the timing, there are multiple things associated with computer kernels. Those of you who are familiar with a little bit of mathematics, you might have known about kernel is a function as well. So here kernel is basically the program that is responsible for executing, for the execution of these, in this case, these cells in our notebook. So here the kernel, as you might have noticed, so what I am doing is I am creating one new notebook here of Python 3, which is basically creating one Python 3 kernel. So in naive language, for the time being, kernel in this context is basically the Python 3 interpreter, which is responsible for execution of all these codes. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.